If you take away the one man behind 4 world titles, you don't just lose an engineer. You break the system that made a champion unstoppable. And that's exactly what just happened at Red Bull. Gianpiero Lambiase, the voice in Verstappen's ear for nearly a decade, is leaving. Not next week. Not suddenly. But the decision is already made. And in Formula 1, once a decision like this exists, the damage has already started. Because this is not about replacing a role. This is about losing the only person who could control Verstappen at full speed. The only one who could challenge him and be trusted instantly. 4 championships. Dozens of wins. Hundreds of race-defining decisions, all built on that connection. Now imagine Red Bull without it. Because here's the part that changes everything. Cars can be fixed. Performance can be recovered. But trust, once it starts to disappear, never comes back the same. And right now, that trust has an expiration date. The moment Lambiase decided to leave, something changed instantly inside Red Bull. Not publicly. Not dramatically. But internally, the shift was immediate. Because in Formula 1, decisions like this don't wait for the future. They affect the present. Right now. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think Lambiase is still fully part of the system. Still operating at the same level. Still fully invested. But that's not how it works. Because once an exit is confirmed, everything becomes temporary. Every decision carries a different weight. Every conversation feels slightly different. And that's something drivers notice immediately. Especially someone like Verstappen. Because he doesn't just listen to instructions. He reads intent, tone, confidence. And when even a small part of that changes, he feels it. Now think about their relationship. Nearly a decade working together. Thousands of laps. Hundreds of high-pressure decisions. Moments where everything could collapse. And didn't, because they trusted each other completely. That kind of connection is not professional. It's instinctive, automatic. And once you introduce an end date to that relationship, it's no longer the same. Even if both sides try to keep it normal. And this is where things become uncomfortable. Because Lambiase is still making calls. Still guiding races. Still managing strategy. But now, there's a countdown. And that changes perception. Inside the garage. On the pit wall. Inside the car. Because when a driver knows that the one person he relies on will not be there in the near future, he starts thinking differently. Not about this race. Not about this weekend. About what comes next. And this is exactly what Verstappen began to do. Quietly. Without saying it directly. He shifted from trust to evaluation. From certainty to observation. And that's a dangerous place for any team to be. Because once a driver starts evaluating, he's no longer fully committed. He's comparing. Analyzing. Looking ahead. And here's where it gets even more critical. Because Lambiase wasn't just part of Verstappen's present. He was part of his stability. The constant in a sport that changes constantly. Remove that constant, and suddenly everything feels less predictable. Less controlled. And for a driver operating at the absolute limit, that matters more than raw speed. But there's another layer to this. One that makes the situation even more complex. Because Lambiase isn't just leaving Red Bull. He's going somewhere specific. A rival. A team that is already building momentum. Which means every decision he makes now, every piece of knowledge, every insight into how Red Bull operates, has future value somewhere else. And even if everything remains professional, that reality cannot be ignored. Not by the team. And definitely not by Verstappen. So now you have a situation where the present is still functioning, but the future is already pulling in a different direction. And that tension, that invisible pressure, is what Verstappen just revealed. Not through what he said, but through how he said it. Because when a driver starts choosing his words carefully, it's usually because he's already thinking about what comes next. And right now, that next step is closer than it looks. And this is where the situation stops being internal and starts becoming strategic. Because once Verstappen shifts from trust to evaluation, other teams start paying attention. Very close attention. Not publicly. Not officially. But behind the scenes, conversations begin. Because everyone in Formula 1 understands one thing. Drivers like Verstappen don't become available often. And when they do, it changes everything. But here's the key detail most people are missing. Teams don't wait for a driver to leave. They prepare before it happens. They position themselves early. They build the conditions before the opportunity exists. And right now, one team has already done that. Piece by piece. Quietly. Precisely. McLaren. Because this isn't just about signing Lambiase. It's about what that move represents. It's about what it enables. Because when you bring in the one person who understands Verstappen completely, you're not just improving your team. You're sending a message. A very clear one. We're ready for you. And even if that message is never spoken, it's understood. Perfectly. Now look at it from Verstappen's perspective. Inside Red Bull, things are changing. Not collapsing, but shifting. Losing stability. Losing that perfect alignment that once made everything effortless. And outside, there is a structure forming. One that feels familiar. One that already includes someone he trusts. Someone who knows exactly how to extract the best from him. That's not just attractive. That's powerful. Because it removes uncertainty. And in Formula One, removing uncertainty is everything. But here's where the tension reaches its highest point. Because Verstappen hasn't made a decision. Not yet. But he doesn't need to. Not immediately. All he needs is time. Time to observe. Time to compare. Time to see which direction feels right. And while he takes that time, both realities continue to evolve. Red Bull tries to stabilize. To recover. To prove that the structure still works. McLaren continues to build. To strengthen. To prepare. And the gap between those two realities slowly becomes clearer. More defined. More obvious. Until one day, it's no longer a question. It's a conclusion. And that's the moment everything changes. Because once Verstappen reaches that point, once he sees one path as stable and the other as uncertain, the decision won't feel risky. It will feel necessary. And when that happens, it won't just be about a driver changing teams. It will be about a shift in power. A shift that started the moment Lambiase decided to leave. And now, we reach the part nobody inside Red Bull can fully control anymore. Because up to this point, everything has been internal. Decisions. Conversations. Shifts in structure. But what happens next moves beyond the team. Into something much bigger. Perception. Because in Formula One, perception becomes reality very quickly. And right now, the perception around Red Bull is changing. Not as the dominant force. Not as the untouchable machine. But as a team, losing its core. Piece by piece. And when that perception starts to spread, it affects everything. Confidence. Decision-making. Even performance on track. Because drivers feel it. Engineers feel it. And rivals use it. This is where Red Bull enters dangerous territory. Not because they are slow, but because they are no longer feared in the same way. And for a team that built its dominance on absolute control, that shift is critical. Now combine that with Verstappen's position. Because he is no longer just the driver. He is the reference point. The center of the entire project. And when the center starts to question the structure, everything around it becomes unstable. Even if nobody says it out loud. But here's where it becomes irreversible. Because once other teams believe there is a real chance, a real opening, they don't just prepare. They act. They push. They create pressure from the outside. Offers. Conversations. Long-term visions. All designed to do one thing. Make the idea of leaving feel real. Feel possible. Feel inevitable. And Verstappen is now in the middle of that. Not reacting. Not rushing. But listening. Observing. Calculating. Because he knows something very few drivers ever get to experience. Leverage. Real leverage. The ability to choose. Not based on contracts. Not based on money. But based on where he believes he can win. Consistently. And enjoy it. And that brings everything back to the same point. That same sentence. That same shift in tone. Because when he talks about enjoyment, he's not describing the present. He's defining his future. And here's the final piece that changes everything. Red Bull cannot fix this quickly. They can improve the car. They can adjust the structure. They can try to replace roles. But they cannot recreate what they just lost. Not in time. Not at the level required. And Verstappen knows that. Which means, from this moment forward, every race is not just about results. It's about confirmation. Confirmation of whether staying makes sense, or whether leaving becomes the only logical step. And when a driver like Verstappen reaches that conclusion, he doesn't hesitate. He moves. Quietly. Decisively. And by the time the rest of the world realizes it, the decision has already been made. Because this was never about one exit. It was about what that exit started. A chain reaction. That now is impossible to stop. And when a chain reaction reaches this point, it stops being about possibilities. It becomes about timing. Because everything is already in motion. The exit. The internal shift. The change in Verstappen's mindset. The preparation from rival teams. All of it is no longer building. It's unfolding. And this is the moment where Formula One becomes brutally simple. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Simple. You either have the structure to win, or you don't. And right now, Red Bull is trying to prove they still do. But Verstappen is no longer assuming it. He's testing it. Every weekend. Every session. Every decision from the pit wall. And that's a completely different dynamic. Because before, he trusted the system without question. Now, he's verifying it. And verification takes time. But it also creates distance. Because the more you analyze something, the less you rely on instinct. And instinct is what made that Verstappen and Lambiase connection so powerful. Instant decisions. No hesitation. No doubt. Now imagine replacing that with uncertainty. Even if it's small. Even if it's barely noticeable. At this level, that's enough. Enough to lose tenths. Enough to miss opportunities. Enough to feel that something isn't as sharp as it used to be. And once a driver feels that, it's very difficult to ignore. But here's where everything finally comes together. Because this story was never just about Lambiase leaving. It was about what his exit exposed. The fragility behind the dominance. The dependence on a structure that no longer exists in full. And most importantly, the fact that Verstappen's future is no longer guaranteed. Not by contracts. Not by loyalty. Not by history. Only by one thing. Performance, combined with trust. And right now, both are under pressure. So when Verstappen speaks, when he chooses his words carefully, when he talks about enjoyment instead of victories, he's not describing a phase. He's signaling a threshold. A point where staying and leaving start to feel equally real. And once that happens, everything changes. Because from that moment on, every improvement by Red Bull is not just progress. It's persuasion. An attempt to convince their own driver to believe again. And every strong performance from a rival team is not just competition. It's an invitation. A reminder that there are other options. Better options. More stable options. And Verstappen sees all of it. He understands all of it. Which means the final decision will not be rushed. It will not be emotional. It will be precise. Calculated. Inevitable. And when that decision finally arrives, it won't feel like a surprise. It will feel like the only possible outcome of everything that started the moment Lambiase chose to leave Red Bull.